They say New Year's Eve is a night for new beginnings, but for me, it was almost the end. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. I was driving back from a party with my ex-girlfriend, Duda. We were exhausted, and honestly, driving on icy roads after midnight is the worst decision you can make. But we had no choice, there was no room for us to stay over. We were barely 10 minutes from her place when the world turned upside down. 1 second, the road was a void of empty white and black. The next, a woman was standing directly in the center of my lane. She wasn't crossing, she was stationary, facing my car as if she'd been waiting for us in the freezing cold. My brain froze. It was only when I slammed on the brakes that I realized she was holding a massive kitchen knife down by her side, the kind used for carving meat. Her face was a mask of agony, twisted like she was screaming or crying, but no sound came out. I yanked the wheel to the right, desperate to miss her, but as I passed, she lunged at us. I heard the thud of the knife hitting the metal. The tires lost their grip on the ice, and the car spun violently. We did a full 180-degree turn, and when the world stopped spinning, we were facing back the way we came, right at her. She started limping toward us with a guttural, animalistic growl. There was nothing behind her eyes, she looked like a dead person walking. As she got closer, I floored the gas, but she was impossibly fast. She threw herself onto the hood of my car. I could hear her knife stabbing the glass of the windshield over and over, inches from my face. She was screaming that wordless, horrific sound, her eyes locked onto mine through the cracked glass. I swerved the car back and forth with everything I had. Finally, on the fourth Jatka swerve, she lost her grip and rolled off into the snow. I saw her lying there in the rearview mirror, unmoving. Duda grabbed my arm, shaking, telling me not to stop, that we couldn't get involved. I drove home in silence, the image of those dead eyes burned into my mind. I fixed the car a week later, but the guilt never left. New Year's Eve in New York City is a beast of its own. The air is so sharp it feels like it's cutting through your skin, and the city vibrates with a desperate energy to find the perfect moment. After the nightmare I went through years ago in Vermont, I usually preferred staying in, but my friends Ryland and Ari wouldn't take no for an answer. They dragged me to this upscale rooftop loft in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The place was packed, a thick mix of expensive perfume, spilled champagne, and the sweat of hundreds of people dancing under dim, amber-colored industrial lights. I remember standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Manhattan skyline across the East River. The buildings looked like jagged teeth biting into the cold, black sky. I felt out of place, clutching a plastic cup, just waiting for the clock to strike 12 so I could leave. That's when I saw her. Near the makeshift bar, there was a girl who stood out because she looked so effortless. In a room full of sequins and tuxedos, she was wearing a dark denim jacket that looked a bit too big for her, thrown over a simple black silk dress. Her hair was a messy cascade of long wavy chestnut curls that caught the amber light every time she moved. She wasn't dancing or on her phone, she was just observing the room with intense hazel eyes. I walked up to her, and we hit it off immediately. Her name was Maitra. She told me she was a painter from San Diego, used to doing large-scale murals. As we talked, the rest of the party faded into a blur. She had this incredible energy. She told me about her 2 cats, Mia and Cosmo, and how Mia would sit on her wet paintings. She told me her birthday was April 28th. She even shared an obscure memory about a childhood friend from a tiny German town called Hillesheim. To make sure I wouldn't forget her, she took a blue ink pen and wrote her name, Maitra, across the back of my hand. Her touch was surprisingly warm. When the countdown hit 0, we kissed under a rain of confetti, and I felt like I had found something real in a city full of ghosts. We decided to head back to my apartment in the East Village to escape the noise. We reached my apartment around 1:30 a.m. It was a typical East Village space, small, but it felt like a sanctuary. Maitra was shivering from the walk, so I offered her one of my white t-shirts to sleep in. Her clothes smelled like the party, smoke and gin, so I threw her denim jacket and dress into my small washer-dryer unit for a quick refresh. We sat on my worn-out velvet couch for hours, talking about life, art, and the universe. The hum of the dryer was the only background noise to our whispers. By 5 a.m., we were both exhausted. I gave her the bed and crashed on the couch. When I woke up at 10:30 a.m., the sun was stabbing through the blinds. The apartment was deathly quiet. I called her name, silence. I checked the bedroom, the bed was perfectly made, as if no one had slept there. I checked the bathroom, dry. I ran to the kitchen and opened the dryer. It was empty. My white t-shirt was gone, and her clothes were gone. I panicked. My front door was double-locked from the inside with a deadbolt that requires a key to lock from the outside. My keys were still on the counter. There was no way she could have left and locked the door behind her. I felt like I was losing my mind until I looked at my hand. The blue ink was still there. Maitra. She was real, but she was gone. I spent the day in a daze. Around 1 p.m., I called my friend Garrett in Hong Kong. He's a software engineer, very logical. He sounded terrified. He told me he met a girl named Maitra the previous night in Hong Kong. They went to his place, and she vanished from his locked 20th floor apartment. My heart stopped. I started listing the details: San Diego, painter, cats named Mia and Cosmo, birthday April 28th. He confirmed every single thing. Then we did the math. Hong Kong is 13 hours ahead of New York. While she was with Garrett in Hong Kong, she was also with me in New York. A flight takes 16 hours. It is physically impossible for her to have been in both places. Garrett sent me a photo he took of her in Hong Kong. I opened it and saw the same chestnut hair, the same denim jacket, and the same hazel eyes. She had lived the exact same New Year's Eve, with the exact same memories, in 2 different continents at once. We realized then that we hadn't met a girl, we had met a glitch in reality. To this day, we don't speak of it. Some mysteries are better left alone. My father and Victor stood frozen at the window. That blue light on the lake wasn't just a glow anymore, it was pulsing, like a heartbeat made of electricity. My father, being the curious soul he was, grabbed his heavy wool coat and his flashlight. Victor tried to stop him, warning him that the ice might not be thick enough, but the light was like a magnet. They stepped out onto the porch, and the cold hit them like a physical blow. It was -20 degrees, the kind of cold that freezes the hair inside your nose instantly. As they crunched through the deep snow toward the edge of the lake, the light suddenly vanished. Total darkness. My father clicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting a weak path through the falling snow. And that's when they heard it. A small, thin voice. A child's voice, crying out for help. "Hello? Is someone there?" my father shouted, his breath blooming in massive white clouds. The flashlight beam swept across the flat surface of the lake, and then, the light landed on something that made their hearts stop. About 50 yards out, standing right in the middle of the frozen lake, was a small boy. He looked about 7 years old. He was wearing a bright red puffer jacket and a blue knitted cap. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, shivering, looking directly at them. It made no sense. The nearest cabin was miles away. There were no tracks in the snow leading out to him. It was as if he had been dropped there from the sky. Victor started running toward the boy, shouting that he was coming to help. But as they got within 20 feet, the air began to hum. The ground beneath their feet vibrated. Suddenly, a blinding flash of white light erupted from the ice, 10 times brighter than the blue light from before. It was so intense that my father had to shield his eyes. For 5 seconds, the world was pure, searing white. When the light faded and his vision returned, the boy was gone. The lake was empty. No footprints, no red jacket, nothing but the flat, indifferent ice. They searched for hours, screaming the boy's name until their throats were raw, but the only response was the mocking whistle of the wind. After that blinding flash on the lake, the world felt empty. My father and Victor stood on the ice, their eyes stinging, their hearts hammering against their ribs. The boy in the red puffer jacket had vanished into thin air. There were no tracks leading away from where he stood, only the fresh, undisturbed snow that had fallen during the flash. They searched for another hour, their flashlights dying, their fingers turning numb and blue from the sub-zero temperatures. Eventually, the fear of the dark and the cold became too much. They retreated to the lodge, stumbling through the deep drifts, looking back every few seconds, expecting to see the boy following them. But there was nothing. Only the trees. Inside the lodge, they locked every door and shuttered the windows. They didn't speak. They sat by the dying embers of the fire, shivering, trying to rationalize what they had seen. Was it a mirage? A shared hallucination caused by the extreme cold? Victor tried to convince himself it was just a weather phenomenon, ball lightning or a transformer blowing in the distance, but he couldn't explain the boy. The boy was too real. The red of his jacket was too bright. The look of cold in his eyes was too human. Suddenly, around 3 a.m., the lodge became deathly quiet. The wind, which had been howling for hours, stopped. Not a single branch creaked. My father was staring at the large window that looked out toward the lake. The frost on the glass was thick, crystalline patterns blocking the view of the woods. Then, he heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 It wasn't a branch. It was a finger hitting the glass. My father's breath hitched in his throat. He looked at Victor, who was paralyzed with fear. Slowly, my father stood up and walked toward the window. He took his sleeve and wiped away a small circle in the frost. He expected to see a branch or an animal. Instead, he saw a face. It was the boy. The same blue knitted cap, the same pale, hollow cheeks. He was standing right outside the window, on the porch. But here is the thing that still makes my father's voice shake. The porch was 5 feet above the ground, and there were no steps leading up to that part of the window. The boy was effectively floating. He wasn't crying anymore. He was just staring, his face inches away from the glass. His lips were moving, forming words that my father couldn't hear. My father lunged for the door, desperate to pull the child inside from the freezing night. He yanked the heavy wooden door open, but the porch was empty. No footprints in the fresh snow on the deck. No sign of the boy. Just a small, damp handprint on the outside of the glass, exactly where the face had been. My father and Victor left the lodge at dawn, leaving their gear behind. They never went back. To this day, my father says he doesn't fear ghosts, he fears the things that use the shapes of children to lure us into the dark. And somewhere in the Vermont woods, he believes, that blue light is still pulsing, waiting for the next curious soul. 3 stories. 3 different nights. And 3 mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. Whether it's a vengeful soul on a snowy road, a girl who can exist in 2 places at once, or a child appearing from a blinding flash of light, one thing is certain, our world is far more mysterious than we dare to admit. The next time you find yourself driving alone on a dark night, or meeting someone who feels a little too perfect, remember these stories. Because sometimes, the shadows don't just follow you, they're waiting for you. Thank you for watching. If you've ever had an experience that defies logic, share it in the comments below. Stay safe, and keep your eyes on the road. Good night.